Okay, there you go. For those of you watching on YouTube, yes, we are now live. YouTube was being very, very slow on the giddy up there. But if you're watching on YouTube, welcome. You haven't missed anything. We'll bring this back up again. My name is Chris Graham alongside Patrick Byrne. Connor Baldwin handling the camera design for us here. Welcome to Pocono Raceway. Qualifications have just wrapped up. We will get you the starting lineup for tonight's race. If you want to recap qualifications, that is available on the Twitch feed. You'll be able to go and check that one back out there. Not sure what YouTube had going on, but we're live now. Thank goodness. Field getting ready to roll out behind the iRacing safety car. Let's get you the, iRacing Pace truck. By the way, Pocono Raceway, first place to use a Pace truck on the NASCAR circuit. At least to use one, regularly. Let's get you the starting lineup for tonight's race, starting on the pole out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. The Bulldog Roof Works, number 63 Ford Mustang of Synergy Esports, Johnny Avila. Lining up to his outside, the number 14 from Alliance, Ohio. The custom paints and die-cast rocket ship Chevrolet for Will Worsler Racing. That's going to be A.J. Digby. On row number 2 will be the 29 in New Johnsonville, Tennessee's Will Worsler. And the Willoughby Roofing and Sheet Metal Custom Paints and Die-Cast High-Flow Industrial Ford Mustang for Will Worsler Racing. Lining up to his outside out of Clearwater, Florida, the Arch Telecom PNC Bank Ford Mustang of Tyler Seville. Lining up in the third row will be the 57 of Cape May, New Jersey's Mike Mcconville in the Shattered Dream Racing Chevrolet Camaro. And to his outside, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania's Thrustmaster Chevrolet belonging to Troy Haight. Kevin Stone and John Eckhart going to be up on row number 4. Row 5, Tony Patton and Tim Knott. Row 6, Richard Smith and Richard Fletcher. Getting the text chat here from Mr. Byrne as we get ready to go racing. We will tell that story, I am sure, over the course of the night. Pace truck going to make its way in. It is just about time to go racing. Green flags in the air. We are underway here at Pocono.
Johnny Avila already trying to take defensive, offensive action, trying to block off that inside line gun in the one, and it seems to work out for him. He's got the lead.
First side-by-side battle is going to be Mike Mcconville and Tyler Seville. That is Mcconville down to the inside of the racetrack. Seville up on the outside. Avila trying to break the draft. Everybody single file down the Long Pond Straight. Well, maybe not so much. Here comes John Eckhart having a peek to the inside. He will sneak around Troy Haight. Tyler Seville going to battle on Will Worsler. First time through turn number 3, and I'll tell you what, Patrick, this corner is not quite board flat, but it is so easy to get wrong in a big way.
3 degrees of banking? 6? That's no banking at all.
Yeah, I think it's 6, but not much. The interesting one, though, is turn 1. It's banked at 14 degrees, which, again, doesn't sound like a ton, but you absolutely fall off a cliff into the bowl that is turn 1, and it kind of shoots you back out on the exit. So it's not exactly like just turn the wheel and follow the banking.
This turn right here, turn 2, is the real tricky one. It's banked 9 degrees, just like Indianapolis. It's a 90-degree corner, just like Indianapolis. However, unlike Indy, there's a big tunnel that goes underneath it, and there is a huge bump in that corner, and you'll see cars hit that bump wrong and get sent sideways really quickly. It is the trickiest corner on this tricky triangle.
Coming out of that final third corner that we mentioned, that's one of those deals that if you don't get it right, you are going to lose possibly as much as 10 miles an hour of top speed by the time you get down to turn 1.
Yeah, turn 3 is very forgiving, though, just because of how wide this racetrack is. It's not as difficult as turn 2, only because if you miss your braking point, you can still kind of step on the brakes. You have 7 more lanes of racetrack to still kind of get the car to push up before you actually hit the wall. But yeah, you'll kill your exit if you don't brake for it early enough. Turn 3 is the most road course-like corner on this track, and you have to nail that one. You have to nail the exit if you want to go fast around here.
Mike Mcconville pulling away from Tyler Seville just a little bit, so we'll slide back here. Pick up John Eckhart, Troy Haight, Kevin Stone. Get you these guys on the close-up here. That 17 machine of Stone, the RS Custom Paint, Famucci Wear, Desert Hobbies entry. He's going to have the look inside of Troy Haight through turn number 1. This one is really interesting to watch how you try to, if you're going to try to make the pass in turn 1, you almost have to complete it before exit because you're going to lose the momentum when you can't slide all the way out to the wall.
I don't think turn 1 is a passing zone on this track. I would say turn 2 and turn 3 is your opportunity. Turn 1, you just got to ride. You got to maximize your exit off of turn 3, stay in the draft as long as possible, and kind of drag race him down the turn 1, and then you got to play chicken with him and brake later for turn 1 and clear him before you even get into the corner. It's like I keep saying, this track really races like a road course. If you want to make a pass, you got to set someone up for a whole lap, if not 2 laps, to actually make that move. It's a very, very difficult track to race at.
Take a look here. Let's go on board with Mr. Troy Haight. This really is a place where you are as much steering with your right foot as you are with the wheel.
Yeah, if you want to get around these corners, you need a loose race car. And you end up having to drive it kind of like a wing lift sprint car where you're turning that steering wheel left and then using the throttle to try and steer the rear end of the car out a little bit and just try and get it to pivot around these corners. And that really comes to bite you here in turn 1, because if you're too loose going around that banking, the banking's trying to force you one way, the loose car is trying to force you another, and that ends up in a spin pretty quickly. So we see Troy Haight staying in 5th gear through turn 1. I'm curious if he downshifts here in turn 2 or even in turn 3.
I would imagine a lot of that is going to be a function of the setup where basically what you're looking at is how does the car drive for the setup, not necessarily how you might want to drive it.
Yeah, with the fixed setup, this track becomes incredibly difficult just because this is very driver-oriented track. And some drivers like certain things, other drivers like other things. So if you're a driver who really, really likes a very tight race car and fixed setup is a loose race car around here, you're not going to have a lot of success. You're kind of just hanging on for dear life at that point.
On board now with Kevin Stone. Already 7 laps into this race. Haven't done this one yet. Let's get you a very quick look here at the weather conditions for this race. Presented by our friends at the Weather Center. Offensively accurate weather for eastern Pennsylvania. Ambient temperature going to be 79 degrees. Winds out of the northwest at 9 miles an hour. 114 degree track temperature. That's toasty. And
not this time of year.
Well, yeah, not this time of year in the real world, but that's absolutely a summertime type temperature. And the reality is, the hotter it gets, the slicker this is going to be.
Yeah, the hotter that track temp gets, the rubber that's built up on the racetrack, instead of being nice and sticky and holds the car right to it, it almost turns into mud, where you're going around, you're sliding in it, and instead of your tires actually grabbing onto it, it's kind of just trekking through it like very thick water or very thick mud. and it is not fun to drive in.
See Mike Mcconville closing in quickly on A.J. Digby for the second position. Tyler Seville, Will Worsler holding on to the fourth and fifth positions. This is by far the tightest battle on the racetrack right now. I would imagine, and you've been in this position before, Patrick, where you're the new guy to the league. That's not the easiest thing to jump into, especially when you're talking about being 7 of 10 races into a championship.
Yeah, but I've raced with Mike before. As you said before, he's not new to the National Race Network. He's not new to the other leagues we cover, and he's not new to me. I know that guy can drive. He's going to give these guys a run for their money, and he's going to put on a show tonight.
Already 1/10 of the way home, well, just about 1/10 of the way home here at the Tricky Triangle. Still Johnny Avila over A.J. Digby and Mike Mcconville for your podium positions. Tyler Seville, Will Worsler, your top 5. 6 through 10, Troy Haight, Kevin Stone, John Eckhart, Tim Knott, and Richard Smith. Tony Patton and Richard Fletcher. I am going to single these two guys out here at the back of the pack. The 86 of Patton just getting into turn 1. Richard Fletcher just a little bit back behind him on the racetrack. These guys have worked together before. Is there a possibility that they are on some kind of make this on one stop strategy?
There's absolutely the possibility, and it seems like every time NASCAR comes here in the rear world, it becomes a fuel mileage race. So if you can work together and turn this into a fuel mileage race with your name on the top of the leaderboards, I say that's a valid strategy, and I say you should go for it.
That 43 custom paints and die-cast Will Worsler racing entry for the Thomasville, North Carolina native. Currently running in last, about 2/3 of a lap behind your race leaders. Tony Patton's 86 out of Wendover, Ontario, Canada. I'm very, very interested to see how this develops, because the problem is at Pocono, you can pit without going a lap down. So it's not necessarily some oddball strategy call to try to trap somebody a lap down in the process.
No, and at a track this large, it's very, very difficult to make that up. So if you could trap somebody a lap down, especially somebody who's very, very high up in the point standing, someone who's usually very successful, it can be a huge run for you and trying to make up that gap.
Taking a look here at A.J. Digby and Mike Mcconville. They have closed in to about 0.4 of a second on Johnny Avila. Now, Avila, the gap was actually down to about 0.2 of a second entering turn 2. If you're Mcconville, is this a game of patience and wait it out, or do you feel like you have to get around Digby here?
No. You can sit there and wait it out. Especially being this new to the series, you don't want to go out there and make any stupid moves. So you could see he's bump drafting a little bit with Digby right now, and that just made up a huge gap to Johnny Avila. So maybe he's going to try that for a bit, get Digby and Avila to fight for a little while, and either in the hopes they burn their stuff up, or better yet, take themselves out, and Mike Mcconville is just going to drive right on by them like they weren't even racing. And this is a track where the saying, racing is just playing chess at 200 miles an hour, really, really couldn't be more true. I mean, all Mike has to do is just sit here and force Digby and Avila to really get into it and race with each other, and he can just go on by.
Seeing Clay Kennedy checking in saying, let's go WWR. Haven't heard from Nicky Worsler yet. And Billy Tenno checking in. Mike's my best friend. He's been excited to jump in after a bit of a break. Yeah, I haven't seen Mike. That was one of the interesting ones. So sometimes you have to do the little bit of mental refresh. Just step away from the sim. It's easy to take this way too competitively.
Yeah, I usually end up racing every odd season in the iRacing calendar. That works out really well for me because I get in at Season 1, Season 3, and I'm ready to go for the whole season. And then I take a season off, avoid getting burnt out, and it really helps my performance when I do race because it's fun. I'm enjoying it instead of going crazy and then end up making stupid mistakes.
Looked like Kevin Stone may have gotten a piece of the outside wall off of turn number 3. We'll take a look here and see if there's any damage on the right-hand side of that number 17 machine. If he didn't get the wall, he was really close to it. It was either Stone or Troy Haight that looked like they got a piece of it. I thought it was Kevin Stone, but
he was just running that Kyle Larson line.
Yeah, cars look good, so we'll go back to this battle up at the front of the field here, at least temporarily. It is the tightest one by far. And it will be Johnny Avila, AJ Digby, Mike Mcconville, still your top 3. Thank you very much for the first-time chat there, by the way, Billy. We appreciate it. Thank you, everybody who's hanging out here on Twitch. And we're going to there's a automatic commercial coming up in about 15 seconds here on Twitch. So we will see you guys after the ad finishes running. Working lap number 16. Still 84 and change to go here at Pocono.
Speaking of ads, I just went to go pull the stream up, and I'm getting ads for stuff I'm already subscribed to. They're advertising to the wrong people.
Yeah, that's one that we have absolutely no control over. So now Digby and Mcconville, once again, they're back within about 0.3 of a second, a quarter of a second of Johnny Avila as they head down the Long Pond Straight. Still not even halfway to the fuel run here. We're anticipating anything from lap 35, maybe lap 45 as like a very, very top end. And that's the one that I don't quite understand. If you're going to try this as some sort of like fuel saving strategy or something, you have to get to 50. It's not like you can get to, 48, something like that. You've got to go 50 complete laps if you're going to make it to the end of this thing.
Yeah, and this is not a track that's known for cautions. It's known for maybe 1-2 major wrecks each year, but you're not going to get caution after caution where you're going to be saving a ton of laps just pacing around. We might get one, and it'll be at the end of that fuel stint, maybe when guys are racing real hard, going through turn 2 and hitting it wrong in old tires. And that'll really be it. And of course, these guys are going to prove me wrong as I say that, and there's going to be a 12-car pileup. But it's just, historically, you can't bank on the caution here.
The other one that some places, like next week when we head off to North Wilkesboro, that place is a menace for this. But here, getting on and off of pit road is about one of the easiest racetracks to do this on. Exit of turn 3 is very wide. The pit road entry is pretty wide, and pit lane itself is monstrously wide.
I was going to say, I think the pit lane is wider than Dover. Like the racing surface at Dover, not even the narrow pit lane they have there. Although you could probably include that pit lane, and the pit lane here would be wider still.
Yes, this place is huge. Everything about Pocono is very, very big. I have shot that. The really great shot that you see happen every year where the cars are fanned out 5-6 wide down the front stretch at the start of the race. I have laid on top of the turn 1 wall to take that photo. You can't barely see turn 3. You can't see the entrance to turn 3 from this location in turn number 1. It's very much like Indianapolis in that respect, in that your sight lines are not necessarily the greatest around here.
I was going to say, if I was an aircraft pilot and I had all my engines go down and I was over this area, I wouldn't even try to get to Allentown or any of the other major airports. I would look for Pocono Raceway and land on that front stretch because it is more than big enough to land a plane. You could run a whole airport out of here, probably on all 3 straightaways.
Buddy! What a save, A.J. Digby. But now he's going to give up a little bit to Mike Mcconville, and now maybe we're seeing that tire wear come into play.
And McConville's just going to keep playing him into his game. He's just going to sit there, force him to keep making mistakes, drive on by him, and try and do the same thing Johnny Avila.
Yeah, he really doesn't have to push at this point.
And McConville used to do this to me in the PM18. Just, if he wanted to get by me, he would just sit right behind me on my gearbox and wait for me to make a mistake and drive on by me like I wasn't even there. He is very good at just waiting it out and intimidating you.
This battle for the top 3, go ahead.
I say that, McConville, did you see how much counter steer he had to put in that car through turn 2?
Yeah, that makes me wonder. Well, that sort of tells me that you're probably more looking at like lap 35 for the pit stops and just split the race up into thirds at that point. Get yourself a little bit of room for the green-white checkered at the end. If you can make lap 40, that's a bonus. But the reality is you're not thinking 40, 45. You're more kind of leading towards that 33, 35 number.
I mean, some of these guys at the back who are all working together, they might try and stretch it, but these guys in the front, I don't think there's any reason to. Again, this is not a track known for caution, so you can run the race straight out like it's a road course race, and not have to worry about the whole field getting bunched up together.
Well, that is definitely something that even in the real world, these NASCAR crew chiefs will do. They'll work the race backwards.
Yeah, I saw one IndyCar a couple years ago when they were at Iowa. And one of the crew chiefs' maths, and this is what a lot of teams did. The way the math worked backwards, your first pit stop is on lap 9. And I saw about 5 or 6 cars pit on lap 9. I'm like, this makes no sense, but especially at Iowa where you're going to get a lot of cautions. But at the same time, it makes a lot of sense if you're not planning on a ton of cautions because you're getting the minimum amount of pit stops you need working backwards like that. And especially taking your short pit stop really, really early, it's going to help you on the back end of the race where everyone else might be taking a full tank of fuel. You're not stopping at all.
Tony Patton, by the way, is just ahead of the race leaders here. But he could luck this out. If he's trying the fuel stretch and the leaders come in at that lap 35-ish number, now you're talking about all the time lost on pit lane. I don't know that it's totally enough to make up, but it's definitely a strategy call that you could put in play. But you have to make 50. That's my only worry about him.
This track is so long, and with the way iRacing does cautions being 5 laps long, and just doing some napkin math in my head, for every lap under caution, you save 2 laps of fuel, as long as you're fuel saving during that caution. With one good well-timed caution, that strategy could work.
Oh, man, big shot there.
Making a little bit of contact with A.J. Digby. A little bit, actually. I mean, that was like a Brad Keselowski shunt.
Oh, my goodness. So we will be at 25% distance here next time past the start-finish line. Slide back in the field here a little bit. Pick up Troy Haight and Kevin Stone. They're going to go side by side through turn one. I didn't think that was necessarily an option here, but we'll see. How about they just stay side by side for the whole lap? That could be fun. So we'll be keeping an eye out here for when the stops are going to start. The next battle that we have here further up the racetrack is going to be between Will Worsler and Tyler Seville. They're running 4th and 5th in what sort of feels like a pretty big fuel save run for these guys as well. From the beginning of the race, they have not been really, extra tight with the leaders here. Coming up on Tony Patton's machine, Johnny Avila has already gotten past. AJ Digby and Mike Mcconville going to come down that short straightaway between turns 2 and 3. Mcconville going right back to the bumper. Down the front straightaway here. Not really much of a surprise. Man, we got to go back to this battle. Troy Haight, Kevin Stone continuing to fight.
Now that I'm looking at that 17 car a little bit closer, I can see some damage on it on the right front headlight.
Let's take a look. We can give you the focus camera here and really zoom things. Yeah, there is.
Yeah, just a little bit on that fender right there.
Little bit of crinkle. Not a ton. But yeah, he definitely did make contact with the outside wall. And still able to be pretty competitive with Troy Haight. Tim Knott was just all over the back bumper of John Eckhart down the front straightaway, backs it off into turn number 1 and opens the gap back up to about 0.3 of a second. Not really a surprise here, Patrick, that this is the kind of racing that we're seeing where it's 3 cars, 2 cars, 2 cars. You kind of get separated off with somebody, and it's a very easy racetrack to just cruise on.
Yeah, once you find your rhythm here, I would say it's easier than most NASCAR tracks because there's only 3 corners, so you only have to figure out how to drive 3 of them. And you can find your rhythm and just keep grooving with that. And as the run goes on, the only corners you really have to worry about is turn 2, you got to back off just a little bit earlier. And turn 3, just hit the brakes on a little bit earlier. And you can keep running around here. If a caution were to come out, that'll break up your rhythm, and that's why you see a lot of mistakes on the restarts here, just because everyone gets into that zone, and then you pull them out of it, and they're like, where the hell am I? What have I just been doing for the last half hour? It's almost like you've been driving on the highway for a couple hours, and your gas light comes on, or you get pulled over. It kind of takes you out of that zone.
Looking at the lap times here as we'll head back to the top 3. Johnny Avila, last lap, 55.864. Best lap, 55.099. The bigger difference, though, Mike Mcconville, 55.986 for his last lap, 54.955 for the best lap. We're 1 second off of best laps at this point. Are we going to, I guess now would be when we would start to really see the big time fall off in tires, is when you see those numbers really start to expand out lap after lap?
Maybe. Best way I could put it.
Well, there's a lot of unknowns here. This is our first race broadcast for the next-gen cars here at Pocono. But even in the real world, they don't have a lot of data and info on how these tires are going to handle at these racetracks. As we see Mike Mcconville looking inside of Digby into 2.
And this is a great spot to try and get someone. Even you force them high like that, they're going to lose their run, and then even if you're still staying side by side, they lose their entry to turn 3, so you're just going to get them down the straightaway.
Yeah, it's not like
side by side though.
It's not like the open wheel cars where you can keep more momentum wound up down the straightaway and make a big run. We're seeing Digby come back past, but look at what it's done to the gap now back to Will Worsler and Tyler Seville. That was a half second a lap ago. Now it's to within a couple of car lengths.
Yeah, with the length of these straightaways, you really want to be in a single file draft line. Once you start getting side by side with another car, whoever is drafting like that is going to get a huge run on you, and they're going to catch you and pass you, as Will Worsler is demonstrating right now.
Yeah, Worsler looking inside of Mcconville. He'll get the pass completed, bringing Tyler Seville with him. Seville's going to get the good run. Then it becomes a matter of who goes with whom on the exit of turn number 3.
And one thing to keep in mind is this track is 2.5 miles, but unlike Daytona and Talladega, it is an unrestricted, no velocity, or whatever they call it now, plate on the car.
Tapered spacer. No restrictor plates. A tapered spacer at the plate.
That's right. So the speeds are a lot higher, so your draft is going to be a lot bigger than Daytona or Talladega, and your bump drafts are going to be a lot stronger than they would be at Daytona and Talladega. So if you see a couple cars in front of you that aren't single file, if you get single file with the guy in front of you or a guy behind you gets up with you, you're going to pick up 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 miles an hour down those straightaways, and it will close that gap incredibly quickly.
The other gap that's closing is the gap to the race leader. Johnny Avila got hung up behind the lap car of Richard Smith just enough through turn 3 to allow the gaps to close a little. Worsler not going to be close enough to attempt the pass into turn 1. Everybody will stay single file.
And now we got a race on our hands.
Yeah, talking about a 5-car battle for the race lead. Worsler's going to get the drafting help from Digby down the Long Pond Straight. He will be able to get past the lap car off of turn 2. Digby will likely be able to clear him as well. Seville and Mcconville going to have to get the job done at the entry to turn number 3. They do. It's going to keep everybody in line. And at this point now, the window is open for drivers to elect to make their first pit stop of the race. The cars that could be on the fuel save strategy, more cars like Tim Knott in the 41, John Eckhart in the 18, they still have about a third of the racetrack left to go before the leaders will get there to put them a lap down. The strategy call is especially true. Oh, well, maybe not. Here comes Eckhart and Tim Knott down pit lane at lap 35. Patrick, is this possibly the start of the undercut strategy playing out just a little bit here?
Yeah, and by them pitting together, that's going to work out huge for them. If they can leave at the same time, no penalties from either of them, they can kind of tandem together and set some really, really hot laps and catch themselves back up to that pack.
Troy Haight making his way down the pit lane out of the 7th position. Race leaders all staying out on the racetrack at this point. Last car on the lead lap is Kevin Stone. And he may be in a world of trouble here because he has absolutely nobody to come to pit lane with him. Here he is coming down this time. So Stone down on the binders making his way down the pit lane. The question becomes, when do the top 5 make their way in? Working lap number 37, heard the numbers were very likely to be full run at about 39, is what we heard from one of the drivers pre-race. To me, there's not a lot of difference between stopping at 35 and stopping at 39, unless you're just talking about the fact that your final stop is going to be a second or less slower. Oh man, Will Worsler all by himself down pit lane. This really is now execution. If nobody's coming with you, you have to be perfect.
Yeah, you can't miss your box by a little bit, have to back up. I mean, that little weave right there probably just cost him a little bit of time. You have to just nail it. And if you're the only one in pit lane, I don't know if it's enforced or not in this league, but I would be running basically right up against those pit boxes right up until I got in my own. That was a good exit, though. Didn't stall, didn't spin the tires too much, just straight traction to the racetrack. He's already past the green cones, and it's wide open throttle from here.
Here comes your race leader. Johnny Avila down pit lane. AJ Digby coming in as well. Avila going to be right behind the iRacing safety truck. We will do our best to keep an eye on things here. Avila going to be down and away 15.52 seconds. 15:15 the time of the stop for AJ Digby. Now we have the big questions. When did Tyler Seville and Mike Mcconville come down? Right now, lap number 39. Richard Smith also on pit lane, as is Tony Patton. And Patton with a very long pit stop, over 1 minute and 20 seconds. So that's either a monster penalty or some damage repair that is happening there to the 86. Race leader Johnny Avila going to be working his way off of turn number 4. Seville down and away 16.08. Mike Mcconville down and away 15.53.
Chris, I believe you just said turn number 4. There's a big sign in turn 3 that says what turn 4?
That is correct. Getting everybody back out on the racetrack. Let's reset the field for you here as the first round of pit stops is completed at lap number 40. Johnny Avila will be your race leader by 0.9 of a second over Will Worsler. Haven't gotten to show Will a ton here tonight. The New Johnsonville, Tennessee native, Willoughby Roofing and Sheet Metal, Custom Paints and Die-Cast High Flow Industrial on the side of that Ford Mustang. Give you the sponsor shout out here for the race leader as well. Johnny Avila in that number 63 out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. The Bulldog Roofworks Synergy Esports entry. These guys run 1-2, now separated by 1.1 seconds. Third place right now belongs to the 11 of Tyler Seville out of Clearwater, Florida. Arch Telecom PNC Bank adorning the Ford Mustang for Will Worsler Racing. Running in the fourth position currently is the 57 of Cape May, New Jersey's Mike Mcconville. That Chevrolet Camaro entered by Shattered Dream Racing. Stormtrooper on the front, some Star Wars stuff on the side. I'm not that big of a nerd. I couldn't tell you what it is. We'll let you guys blow me up in the comments here.
I can't tell what that is on the side. I know it's a Stormtrooper on the front. I'm not much of a Star Wars fan, but I can't get a good look at what's on the side of that car.
Love the Shattered Dreams on the back of that one, by the way. Fantastic paint job for Mike Mcconville. Running in the fifth position, down 3 from where he started the race this evening, is the number 14 of Alliance, Ohio's A.J. Digby. The custom paints and die-cast rocket ship Chevrolet Camaro for Will Worsler Racing. That is not damage you see on the hood, by the way. That's the one of the, I guess, hood scoops-ish kind of things.
There's definitely a stripe there.
Well, yeah, there's a hole in the hood. Every one of these Cup cars has them, I believe.
Yeah, but no, you can definitely see he's hit something.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. You can see the right front corner. The body panels are not real tight up on each other. Man, big time damage on the left rear of that car, too.
I wonder if that's from the Kozlowski stunt he got earlier.
That may be. It was a pretty big hit from Mike Mcconville. And if we go back to looking at Mcconville, you can see the right front corner of Mcconville's car is a little bit banged up here as well. That car has 2 holes in the hood.
Well, sir, I believe we should become detectives. I believe we've solved this mystery.
I believe so. Or at least until somebody calls us an idiot in the comments and proves us wrong. Running in the 6th position is the number 28 of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania's Troy Haight. The Thrustmaster Chevrolet Camaro. That car looks all right. I'm not seeing a ton of damage on it anyway. That just has the kind of left and right side openings there. Running in the 7th position is the number 17 of Mooresville, North Carolina's Kevin Stone, the RS Custom Paint Famucci Wear Desert Hobbies entry for Pixelated Sim Sports. Good looking race car. Stone, the surprise winner 1 week ago at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. That was a race where it seemed like everybody just wanted to take each other out. Those cars were evil handling 1 week ago at Vegas. They seem significantly more docile here this evening. Well, we say that, and Stone's going to be sideways through turn 3.
Yeah, with these new cars with the independent rear suspension, And this track, driving a lot like a road course, I can see these cars being a lot easier to drive around the speedway in the future. And it almost makes me want to buy tickets for this race this year, just to see how they race in the real world compared to last time I was at this track. I feel like we could have a much, much more exciting race from what we've seen tonight. I mean, these cars seem a lot easier to drive. The draft seems to be a lot stronger. They're able to race side by side and be competitive. It could make for a really, really fun show in the real world.
Running in the 8th position right now is your hard charger of the race to this point. The number 41 of Tim Knott out of Dallas, Texas. Gunskins, Penske, Shock Century 21, Mike Bowman on the side of the Pixelated Sim Sports Toyota Camry. This is another car. Looks like he's had possibly a little bit of an excursion with the outside retaining walls. I will have to go back and refresh my memory here a little bit. I believe, maybe not. Car looks pretty good. Pocono may be one of the very few racetracks that is not safer barriered all the way around. I know in the sim it's not. It is concrete walls down the straightaways. I'm fairly certain, though, Pocono is now safer barrier all the way around this place.
I was just about to ask that. I believe, actually, after Kyle Busch's wreck in 2015 at Daytona, they required safer barrier the whole way around all the ovals on both the inside and the outside. And only on the inside, I believe, on parts that cars would probably hit the wall.
Taking a look at one of the images from, actually, when the NTT IndyCar Series was at Pocono, that does appear to have safer barrier. Yes, it does. Safer barrier all the way around the Pocono Raceway. Now, one of the neat things, though, is the original boilerplate walls are still there. Very cool little thing about that racetrack is you can go up there and see the history, and those boilerplate walls saw some massive hits. Dale Earnhardt punched through one of them in turn number 1. Johnny Rutherford put an Indy car through one in turn 1. I mean, that boilerplate was known for some very, very violent hits. That's one of the things I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen is that the track configuration, by shortening it up by about 3 feet for the safer barrier, you're not going to make that much of a change. However, this place is still crazy fast. You spin the car on entry to the corners, you're going for a ride.
I mean, even after they put the safer barrier up just in the turns, you can still see Jeff Gordon's wreck from, 2006, and that was still a nasty hit.
Jimmy Johnson had a massive one. Casey Kane had a huge one. Bubba Wallace did it in turn 1 as well. Basically,
who flipped down Long Pond straightaway a couple years ago?
The big one that immediately comes to mind was Steve Park and Dale Earnhardt Jr. That was pre-safer barrier, and they hit Armco that was backed up by like a 6-foot, 8-foot high dirt embankment. About as hard as concrete. That was a massive, massive hit for Park and Dale Jr. Finishing our run through the order here, the 23 of Richard Smith out of Aldemont, Quebec, Canada. Toyota Camry for Chantal Dumas, RMT, Kneading Bowl Foods. Ashton Dixon Youth Empowerment for Showtime Racing on the side of that one. We'll finish out the last 3 drivers here in just a minute, but we got a battle for position. Will Worsler and Mike Mcconville dueling. And Mcconville made that pass look relatively easy here. So Mcconville going to put himself back inside the top 3. However, A.J. Digby, that he was chasing in the first stint, now runs in the 5th position. And seeing Will Worsler coming down pit lane, he may have made contact with the outside retaining wall at some point here. Let's take a look. Oh, yeah, the whole right-hand side of that car is junked up. Worsler going to hit the marks, but this, oh, well, no, he slides through the box. Now he gets backed up onto the marks. Team will go to work. But with no backup car, that is a lot of damage there to get repaired. Tough break for Will Worsler. He will go one lap down and still stationary on pit road at the 30-second mark. We'll round out our look through the field here. Pick up the number 18. He's the 45 if you're following along on timing and scoring. The Skittles Zombie of Hazel Green, Alabama's John Eckhart. Pixelated Sim Sports, the team on that number 18 machine. John currently being scored 2 laps behind, and it looks like Will Worsler will be out of this race. Car has departed. Will Worsler likely to finish 12th here this evening. Just back behind John Eckhart is the number 43 of Richard Fletcher out of Thomasville, North Carolina. The custom paints and die-cast Ford Mustang for Will Worsler Racing. It's a fantastic paint job on that car.
That's why they do custom paints.
That's exactly right. Nice touch with the slightly reflective numbers and the matte black paint on that car. That's a very nice contrast. Regular gloss paint on the white, it looks like. A little bit of metallic in the green. A good-looking paint job.
Yes, yeah, I love the way the numbers look white in certain shots, and then kind of you get the light on them, especially on that left side of the car, and they just turn black. It's fantastic.
Final car still running here tonight is the number 86 of Wendover, Ontario, Canada's Tony Patton. That car does have some damage on the right side of that car at the back end. You'll be able to see that coming off the corner here. Actually, the whole right-hand side. That car's throwing up a little bit of smoke sliding through turn 3. They're going full Tokyo drift. Now, let's show you the gaps here, and we'll pull these up on screen because as we go back to race leader Johnny Avila, the tightest gap right now is the 0.8 of a second back to Tyler Seville in second. Everybody else multiple seconds back.
See Johnny Vila there trying to break the draft.
Yes, what do they call that? The dragon on the IndyCar side?
Oh, I'm not sure. I haven't followed IndyCar close enough to
I think
pick up
that's
the
what they
lingo.
call it. I think they call that the dragon. Aggravates the snot out of me when you see guys doing that at 230 miles an hour. Just
Johnny Vila bobbles, hits the yellow line here at Pocono in turn 2.
a little bit of a bobble. Brought Tyler Seville in down to about, call it 0.4 of a second.
Yeah, that cut that gap in half.
Now the question becomes, if you're Tyler Seville, do you do what the race leader does, knowing that you're close enough to get there in terms of pit strategy? I mean, we're not that far off here from having to see the next set of pit stops.
I say so. You want to stick with him. You want to stay in his draft, and you want to keep the pressure on him and force him to make a mistake like we saw there in turn 2. Johnny Avila knows he's there. Knows Tyler Seville's right behind him. He's just about on his bumper now. And he's got to do everything not to make a mistake. And all Tyler Seville has to do is look at that orange and green rear bumper and just say, I'm waiting. Start playing the Jaws theme really loud in the speakers in the car.
Well, this is what Mike Mcconville did with a lot of success in the first stint of this race. The one that really has me floored is the fact that you can see upwards of 5 seconds of a gap when that's not what we had when these cars were coming down pit road.
No, everyone's kind of broken up, and this isn't a track you really think of pack racing with, but it is. Once you lose that draft, there's not much you can do, except watch the cars kind of sail off in the distance.
Next set of stops should be somewhere from lap, we'll say 75 to lap 78 or so for your race leaders. They came down at lap 38 and lap 39 respectively. And quite frankly, looking at where the gap is right now, tells me that Tyler Seville's got a very, very good race car. He came in 1 lap later, so he did 1 more lap on old tires, and he was a full half second slower on pit lane than Johnny Avila was. If that means that you can catch back up in that window, you've got a very, very good race car.
Not only that, you got this track figured out.
Absolutely love the position where that last camera shot was. As we see Avila going full wag the dog, whatever you want to call it, down the straightaway here, trying to get the draft broken. In the real world, there's this nice little gazebo. It's something like you would see in a park or maybe in a big like estate house yard or something. And it just sits there right at the exit of turn number 3. Absolutely fantastic spot to shoot photographs from.
This track, I love all the buildings and everything here. It is such a classic old school track. Honestly, when I go to this track, it reminds me a lot of when I go to like a local short track. Just the way everything is built up, everything is very open, unrestricted. Those grandstands, it's all bench seating the whole way through, kind of like you'd see at a high school with the bleachers. It's not like stadium seats you get at Daytona or any of the other big tracks, and it's really fantastic when you come here. It's a wonderful track to go to if you haven't been.
Next time we see the cars come off of turn number 2, we'll see which camera angle it's going to give us, but looking off the backside of the racetrack, you'll see a handful of white cottages that at one time was where the track owners, Joe and Rose Mattioli, lived when they first built the racetrack. There you see them just there on your screen now. That's now where all of the track's administrative offices are, media, PR, all those types of things. Basically, the whole racetrack is run out of little farmhouses outside of turn number 2. And when you drive in the tunnel underneath of turn 2, that's the infield access point, the first thing you see is a big sign that says, "Welcome to Doc's Place." The last of the true family-owned racetrack. It is now the Igdalski and Mattioli families that own this racetrack. They take that whole meaning of family pretty seriously up here, and a fantastic group of people that we get to go see every summer.
Now, this track's also completely self-sufficient energy-wise. There's a big, I believe, a solar farm right off of turn 3.
Yep, outside of turn 3. Generates so much energy, it powers the entire town of Blakesley, not just the racetrack. but the entire town has no electricity bill.
That must be why when I go to the Wawa in Blakesley, excuse me, that everything is just so cheap there. They don't have to pay for the power. It's all by Pocono Raceway.
Yes, they also have the Pocono Organics. It's not a co-op. It's a wholly owned farm, but they have a big organic farm about a mile or so from the racetrack, which provides, in the summertime, most of the fruit and vegetable needs of the racetrack for race weekend, and local communities and food pantries and all get to benefit from that as well. Some pretty neat initiatives coming out of Pocono Raceway.
The only thing they need to add is a big corn farm on the infield, and then they've got the ethanol to power the race cars with.
Yeah, I don't think you're growing that much ethanol. Actually, I about had Nick Igdalski's head exploding. I think it was the last IndyCar weekend there. Nick is the CEO of the racetrack. I asked him when they were going to build a dirt track inside of Turn 1. Pocono has a couple of road course layouts in the infield. I asked him when they were going to build a dirt track there, and, things like permitting and government agency approvals were the first words out of his mouth. So don't think we'll see a dirt track at Pocono anytime soon. They do, however, have a quarter midget track just outside of Turn 3.
I was going to say, isn't there some interesting stuff that happened at that track a couple years ago?
Yes. And that's all we're going to say about it. There's also the reference that Patrick is making here. Basically, at the end of pit lane, kind of right here, the place is so big, they build a 5th mile racetrack basically at pit exit. During the IndyCar weekend, they ran TQ midgets and champ carts and slingshots and some of that kind of stuff here. I thought I saw a champ cart driver lose his head on into the outside safer barrier, and all I heard the boom, looked over, and all I saw was a helmet rolling around on the ground. Turns out the clown just didn't buckle the chin strap on his helmet when he went to go drive a go-kart.
Oh, man.
That gentleman was very quickly escorted off the property.
I was going to say, when I hop in my cart, chin strap goes on before the gloves even go on. I mean, I forget the gloves more often than anything else, and chin strap always goes on. So I've had enough concussions over the years. Might be why I'm as dumb as I am, but at least I remember to put my helmet on.
I am staying away from that one, by the way. Johnny Avila has opened up the gap to 1.2 seconds over Tyler Seville as we work lap number 65, about anywhere from 8 to 10 laps away from the final round of pit stops. Very un-Pocono-like for the Sim Racers Club here. They average 5 cautions a race and about 20 laps of caution per race. Knocking on wood, we have not seen one yet. And quite frankly, that would change the complexion of this race in a very big way if we see a caution flag before this next cycle of pit stops. The problem at this point is they can, I guess now, the window's about open now. They can go almost 40 laps, so they could make it to the end on fuel, but that would leave them with one set of tires in the box. So race leader Johnny Avila coming around Kevin Stone to put him a lap down. Next up on the list is Troy Haight, but Troy is about 21 seconds or so up the racetrack. So highly unlikely that we will see inside the top 5 be lapped. before the next cycle of pit stops. But this really now, I would imagine, Patrick, it's hard enough. I made this comment last night while I was driving in a Lotus 79 race. It's very difficult to keep your concentration when you're just logging laps with nothing in front of you or very little in front of you. Then you have to mentally reset yourself to be ready to go for the pit stop. That's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to chase the rabbit and have something in front of you to kind of follow and guide yourself off of than it is to just decide, I'm going to pit now and have no reference to go off of. Kind of just turn left and hope you make it.
Yeah, even if that rabbit is not necessarily somebody you're racing against. But even just a lap car of, okay, where is this guy going to go? What are we going to do? You've sort of gotten that a little bit if you're Johnny Avila and Tyler Seville. But the reality is you really haven't had to battle all that much here.
Yeah, that's like a lot of guys, like even Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson is probably greatest of all time, at least in the modern era. Even he does best with a rabbit in front of him. He is not the greatest leader out there, but he'll go and follow you, sit in second place so you get 10 laps to go, and once he's in that groove, he'll go and just pass you like you're standing still and win the race. And it is very hard to sit out there and be the leader and hit your marks lap in, lap out.
By the way, everybody, check in here in the comments if you think Patrick's an absolute idiot. I will say greatest of the modern era, yes, would be Kyle Larson, but he's got to win in a little bit more in other stuff, not just on the dirt. Clay Kennedy checking in here saying, looking great, Avila. Yeah, Johnny Avila's been pretty darn spectacular here. We'll bring Johnny up here as he makes his way all alone through turn number 3. Coming up to complete lap number 69. 2.4 seconds is the lead over Tyler Seville. Tim Knott on his way out of the pit lane. 15.22 seconds the time of the stop there for Tim Knott. Looking ahead on the schedule here, down to 3 races to go after we finish up here tonight. It will be the North Wilkesboro 125 coming up next week from the North Wilkesboro Speedway. 200 laps around North Wilkesboro. That's the kind of place, if Pocono is not great for a 12-car field, North Wilkesboro might be absolutely perfect for a field of that size.
I found North Wilkesboro to be perfect with a field of 3 cars just screwing around my buddies. That track is fantastic no matter what you throw on it. And with the money they were allocated, what was it, a year ago, from North Carolina, I hope we see NASCAR racing at that track again in the future.
I would not be surprised to see a Gander Outdoors Truck Series race there in the semi-near future. Anybody who's hoping for Cup Series to return to North Wilkesboro, I think, is pretty much delusional. There's nothing around it in terms of infrastructure. No easy access to the highway. There's not the hotels. There's not any of that stuff. Even with how close it is to Charlotte, there are still a lot of people that you have to bring in for the weekend. Not everybody is based in the Charlotte area. So Truck Series, yeah, you could probably make that work. I would love to see the Xfinity Series go there as well. The Xfinity Series needs to be in places like North Wilkesboro, Myrtle Beach, even places like Langley, Dominion. There's a lot of great racetracks and short tracks in the Southeast that they should be at.
I don't believe we'll ever see racing at Myrtle Beach ever again.
Not Myrtle Beach. Myrtle Beach is torn down. Oh my God.
Maybe dirt track racing. There's no more pavement there.
Yeah, no, I was going to say Myrtle Beach is now a parking lot. Oh, my goodness. What's the other one I'm thinking of? I don't remember. Anyway, point being.
Sobo?
Maybe. Another racetrack owned by the Mattioli and Igdalski families, by the way.
I was going to say, and they used to run the Busch Series down at Sobo.
Yes, they did, years ago, in the V6 era.
I was going to say, the six-cylinder era, they ran them there.
Those cars made god-awful noises in the six-cylinder era.
I think we need to bring six cylinders back to NASCAR. And even with all the four cylinders on the road, there needs to be a four-cylinder series. I would not be disappointed if we saw a four-cylinder turbo era in the Xfinity series instead of the V8s.
The days of V8 American Iron are all but gone.
I don't want to say that. However, there is a rotting Gen 3 Hemi in the back of my pickup truck. So,
well, yeah, okay. My point is, in terms of modern production cars, there's not many that you're getting with a V8. The days, maybe Cup, I could see them going to a, I really hate to say it, a Turbo 6, the kind of EcoBoost type model for engines. And at that point, I think you would very likely see the Xfinity Series probably go to a turbocharged four-cylinder. It's just too road relevant at this point.
I would still like the Cup Series to stay a V8. The noises they make is fantastic. However, for the Xfinity Series, even though the noise isn't so great, I think it could be fun. And this is coming from someone who got rid of all their V8 cars, and now my fun car is a Thunderbird Turbo Coupe with a turbocharged four-banger. But they're fun little things. So I think they should come to the Xfinity Series. And it would make a lot of the short track, especially like Martinsville, a lot more interesting with having that turbo lag coming out of the corners.
Mike Mcconville making his way down pit road, first of the cars on the lead lap to make his final stop here at lap number 75. We'll see. Could we see right side tires only for Mcconville? Nope. Cruise around to the left-hand side, so it'll be 4 fresh Goodyear Racing Eagles. 2 cans Sunoco fuel. He is down and away, 14.93 seconds. The time of the stop for Mike Mcconville. And at this point now, the window is open. Race leader Johnny Avila. Oh, Avila was up in the outside wall.
And these are the kind of mistakes you can't make as the points leader. You have to avoid anything solid. You just got to stay up there and hold that gap.
Let's take a look here. See if there's any damage on the outside of the car. It looks okay. Not seeing a ton of crinkled bodywork or anything. But that really caught out Johnny Avila. Let's see how the paint looks. Yeah, paint looks good on the outside of that race car, but he is coming down pit lane. No chancing it this time.
Let's see if there's an extended pit stop here.
Car looks good as it makes his way down the very, very long pit lane here at the Pocono Raceway. That has to be excruciating, running this at pit road speed, which even 65 miles an hour, I think it is. Either 55 or 65. That's just painful how long it takes to get to your pit box at the end of pit road. Crew already around to the left-hand side of the race car. He is down and away, 15.63 seconds. Almost a full second slower than Mike Mcconville. The question now becomes, where is Mcconville going to come out on the racetrack? He is fully at speed just now, crossing the start-finish line. Tyler Seville now coming down pit lane. Oh, man, Seville's got some pretty heavy damage on the right-hand side of that car. That may be enough to trigger a repair. So crew going to work on the left-hand side, and there it is. Damage repair for Tyler Seville. Hot into the box comes A.J. Digby. Seville down and away, 20.07 seconds. I would imagine there, Patrick, that is an optional repair, or mandatory repairs only. No optional work being done on that number 11 machine.
Yeah, and he still has he still has damage on that right front. I wonder how that's going to affect him.
I was going to say, it's going to slow the car down a little bit. But Mike Mcconville still 7 seconds back of Tyler Seville. And with A.J. Digby finishing his pit service in 14.7 seconds, that means all of your leaders have completed their final service of the race. So let's run you back through the field here. Pick up race leader Johnny Avila in the number 63. Avila has been in control of this race. Among the fastest in practice, sat on the pole, and has led just about every lap with the exception of the exchange during the pit stops, and he has clinched the bonus point for leading the most laps. Avila looking to take another win to the Great White North up there to Canada and extend his point lead over Tyler Seville. Currently running in second in the race and second in points. Tyler Seville in the number 11 out of Clearwater, Florida. Arch Telecom PNC Bank on the side of that one. Seville among the hard chargers of the race, up 2 positions. But it may not be good enough to claim the hard charger award tonight without some help from Johnny Avila. Now nearly 12 seconds back of the race leader. Running in third, making his first start in the Sim Racers Club, the 57 of Mike Mcconville. The Cape May, New Jersey native, driving for his own Shattered Dream Racing esports team. Mcconville is closing in slightly. The gap's still sitting right about 6 seconds or so. Johnny Avila just setting a new fastest lap of the race. 54.860 seconds. And Mcconville still with that damage on the right front as well. I wonder if that's something that is going to be something we see out of the next-gen cars frequently. These are composite bodies. You can't just kind of beat and bang them out and throw some duct tape on them and get them pretty close to where they were before. You break or bend up one of these panels, that's kind of what you're stuck with the rest of the way.
Yeah, I haven't worked with composite stuff, but I've worked with a lot of fiberglass stuff, and it doesn't dent. It just breaks, and there's no fixing it. I mean, if you want to re-glass it or put the composite back, however they do that, that is an hours-long process, and that's not something you're going to get done in the pit lane. It's best case scenario, you throw some 200-mile-an-hour tape over it and hope it sticks.
Yeah, it's the big sheets of tape is kind of what would close that hole up. Something iRacing needs to implement at this point. If they're going to fix it with tape in the real world, show the piece of tape on it, and even if you got to cover more than just that, the spot, but at least that way we can identify that the damage repair has been done. Running in the 4th position, next to last car on the lead lap, it is the number 14 of Alliance Ohio's A.J. Digby. That Chevrolet Camaro rocket ship has a win this season. Custom paints and die-casts on the side of that Chevrolet Camaro for Will Worsler Racing. Digby down 2 spots from where he started the race this evening. Final car on the lead lap will be the number 28 of Troy Haight. Thrustmaster on the side of the Chevrolet Camaro belonging to the Bethlehem, Pennsylvania native. By the way, have to give a shout out tonight to Jason Franks. Ordinarily would be piloting the Allergan Restasis Toyota Camry. However, sounds like a family member is in the middle of having a baby, and he's on some babysitting duty tonight here, taking care of the family. So, shout out to you there, Jason. Take the night off from racing to do the family stuff. First car 1 lap down will be the number 17 of Kevin Stone, currently running in the 6th position. The Mooresville, North Carolina native. And that pretty banged up RS Custom Paint Famucci Wear Desert Hobbies Ford Mustang. You can see all the damage, scraped up paint on the right-hand side of that race car. Going back to our race leader, Johnny Avila has been absolutely dominant here tonight. He is coming back to 16 laps to go. One hour and 20 minutes on the clock. And we're going to be done in about an hour and 35. Last race when they were here in June, 1 hour and 4 minutes, but they only ran 60 laps here in the Premier Series. A little bit longer race lengths this season in the Premier Series. It's down to 15 to go. Johnny Avila holding on to the 15 2/3 second advantage over Tyler Seville. Mike Mcconville closing the gap down now. It's, we'll call it right about 3 seconds here. Slide back here and pick this one up. And as we watch Seville come through, there you see Mike Mcconville very slowly starting to appear. He's on the relative and just about in the rearview mirror. I just don't know that 14 laps is going to be enough here. Gap still sitting right about 3.5 seconds. You can see the gap closing down, but it's definitely going to be tight here to see if Mike Mcconville is going to be able to get caught up to Tyler Seville.
He's definitely talented enough to do it. I don't know if he has the car to do it right now.
Yeah, both of these cars have pretty significant damage at this point, and it's going to be their 10 or so laps in on this run, so I would imagine the best of the tires is going away.
I forgot who said it. I believe it was Denny Hamlin who said it, but I believe the goodie on the tires is gone.
Would that just mean you're down to the ear?
I'm not sure exactly. I just remember, I believe it was Denny Hamlin saying, yeah, when the goodie on the tires is gone, he said that like 8 or 9 times as the night went on. There ain't no goodie left on them tires.
It's down to now 10 laps to go for race leader Johnny Avila. A race that has been caution-free to this point.
Don't say that. We're going to get a caution.
I am not knocking on wood either. A 5-car shootout for the race win on fresh tires would be absolutely spectacular. Not to mention the fact that there's nobody close to each other. Like, actually, we'll pull up the intervals here to show you the gaps from car to car. There's nothing there.
Yeah, everyone seems to have spaced out, distanced themselves, and just running their own race at this point. I mean, when your crew chief or your spotter says just run your own race, bud, I mean, everyone has that in their ear right now.
Getting the comment here from Billy Tenno. This track feels massive with 12 cars. This track is massive with 40 cars on it. I mean, let's not kid ourselves here. the series, obviously you're going to set your schedule in advance. You're going to draw the car count that you draw. But this place is very, very big for a 12-car field. 40-car fields can get separated out here pretty significantly.
This track is, what, same length as Watkins Glen? And with this track racing like a road course, you're going to get the same kind of gaps that you're going to get at a road course like that. And yeah, this track is massive. You can land an airplane on that front straightaway. I said at the beginning of the race, I'll say it now towards the end. It is the longest front straightaway in all of motorsports. You could argue Nürburgring or Le Mans, but those are both, first off, back straightaways, and second, they have chicanes and other curves by them. This is just a straight-up mile-long drag strip you have on the front straightaway. It is fantastic.
Yes, it's it is an impressive place to visit here. If you ever get a chance to come up to the Pocono Mountains, the scenery is beautiful. The July weekend that they run up there, weather is like spectacular 90% of the time.
I believe that was the only weekend we didn't get rained out at Snydersville.
Sounds about right. So it'll be down to 5 laps to go here for Johnny Avila, this time by. The gap has closed to 3.2 seconds from Tyler Seville to Mike Mcconville. But it's just not going to be enough of a gain here quick enough for Mcconville to benefit whatsoever. I guess the biggest question now is AJ Digby going to go a lap down, but he is about 15 seconds ahead of Johnny Avila, so that is very unlikely to happen. So down to just over 3 laps to go. Johnny Avila, one of the quickest cars on the racetrack. Right now the quickest is Mike Mcconville. He's got the gap inside of 3 seconds now, but again, not likely to be enough here. Tyler Seville doing everything he can to break that draft. Down to just 2 laps to go. Johnny Avila has a couple of lap cars just ahead of him. Off of turn number 3, white flag goes in the air. 1 more lap to go for Johnny Avila. Easily the most dominant performance we have seen this season in the Sim Racers Club Premier Series. Off of turn number 2 for the final time. Johnny Avila not going to be contesting with the lap traffic. Off of turn number 3, checkered flag is in the air. Johnny Avila gets the win here at Pocono. Nearly 18 seconds back.
Just absolute domination.
That was a beating. Tyler Seville comes across the line in the 2nd position. 3rd over the line, Mike Mcconville, and just now getting to turn 3. Fourth place running AJ Digby. He comes across the line to take the checkered, and that will complete the lead lap cars. Absolutely monster run tonight for Johnny Avila. Man, what a performance by Johnny Avila in the number 63. Let's show you the race results here as we got a great look at your race winner. Avila getting the win by 17.5 seconds over Tyler Seville. Mike Mcconville getting a podium in his first Sim Racers Club Premier Series event. AJ Digby and Troy Haight round out the top 5. Haight also the first car 1 lap down. Kevin Stone comes home 6th, Tim Knott in 7th, Richard Smith 8th, John Eckhart 9th, and Richard Fletcher coming home in the 10th position. Tony Patton and Will Worsler will round out the field here this evening. Let's get ready for our Victory Lane interviews, and hopefully we can get Mike Mcconville here into the room. Let's see. Let's get things ready to roll here, and it will be first broadcast I think we've ever done that we have not had to go to the instant replay once over the course of the race. But let's bring up the replay here, slow things down in a big way, and get you a good look at your race winner tonight, Johnny Avila. My goodness, man. Did you ever envision a scenario where you could beat guys like Tyler Seville by 17 seconds?
No. And it was going to be a really good battle, but unfortunately he just snagged the wall and that was it. the aero was too much, especially with these long straightaways. It was unfortunate.
Was that the biggest key to the night, was just keeping the car clean?
Yeah, it was, especially in turn 3, it was extremely twitchy. If you drove it in just a hair too deep, the back end was all over the place, or you'd be sliding, driving it like it was a dirt car, just trying to keep it going.
One of the things we saw last week at Las Vegas was the cars were somewhere between evil and diabolical. How were they tonight in terms of how the setups were working out for you guys?
I would just say evil, not quite diabolical.
It really seems like there's a lot to learn about this next gen car, and you guys are doing a lot of the research here to make this league better.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the setups. Like, luckily Sam was able to at least give us a better setup than what was out there originally, because I think this race would have been a lot more sketchier if we just ran the original fixed setup. Especially with the new car, it's just going to take time for iRacing to update the setups for the car.
All right, bud. Well, I tell you what, it's a very good win. Not a huge help in the way of points because your main rival for the championship, Tyler Seville, coming home in second. You got to be feeling pretty confident, though, here. It looks like it's going to be a little bit over 20 points is your lead with 3 races to go.
That's going to be a nice gap, especially with the field sizes. So it'll be interesting.
We're looking forward to seeing you guys next week at North Wilkesboro. But before we let you go here, let's make sure we get all those sponsor plugs and thank yous in.
Got to thank my sponsor, Bulldog Roofworks. Got to thank everybody that puts the league together. It's a lot of work, especially this week with putting in a new setup just to make the car a little bit more drivable. And I got to thank you guys up in the booth making these races fun to watch back.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you very much. 4 wins, 4 poles, 5 top 5s, 7 top 10s in 7 races this season. Johnny Avila has been absolutely incredible thus far this season, but a guy who's going to be right behind him and trying to put up a big challenge here for the championship is Tyler Seville. All in all, man, not a bad night. Little bit of damage on the right-hand side of the car. Was that really what kind of put things to an end in terms of the race win?
Yep. I feel like if I hadn't gotten into the wall, that it would have been a pretty good battle between Johnny and myself there. But yeah, and it was just a light touch, but it just killed the speed of my car, and I couldn't keep up.
What is that like once the wind's out the window and you've got a pretty decent gap to third place? How difficult is it to keep the concentration up and just keep logging lap after lap after lap?
Well, I just immediately started thinking about what-if scenarios. So like when we had that last green flag pit stop, I knew I had that gap on third place. So I stayed on pit road like an extra 5-ish seconds to fix what damage I could, because you never know when a caution's going to come out. And so if a caution would have come out, I would have had that amount less of time to fully repair my car, and then hopefully it would have been game back on. So yeah, you're just working on what-if scenarios in your head, and then just trying to maintain what speed you do have left in the car.
Well, all in all, not a bad night. Lost a little bit of ground in the point standings. Is there anything you can do outside of hope Johnny has an issue here to try to claim the championship?
Yeah, it's going to have Johnny have an issue. I lucked into him having an issue last week, but then I fumbled that and didn't make up the ground that I needed to. But we'll keep plugging away because you never know what happens in these races.
All right, bud. Well, congratulations on the runner-up finish here tonight. Let's make sure you get all those sponsor plugs and thank yous in before we let you out of here as well.
Yeah, shout out to Arch Telecom and PNC Bank, and then shout out to all my teammates. We had a good run today with 3 of us in the top 5. So looking forward to next week.
All right, bud. Well, thank you very much for hanging out with us. We appreciate you checking in here. And let's bring in a guy that we have not talked to in quite a while, but it is a pleasure to have back on the NRN airwaves, Mr. Mike Mcconville, coming home with a third-place finish in his first Sim Racers Club start tonight. Congratulations, bud. Hope you've been well.
Appreciate it. Likewise to all y'all. It's a pleasure to be back on the NRN Broadway.
What was the car like tonight? How much have you driven the next gen car? I guess would be my first question. And what was it like here running the fixed setup that the league uses?
This was actually my first full race in this car. I've done a bunch of testing, but racing's a whole different beast, being out there with other people. Uh, the setup was great after about 5 laps, but you had to get some heat in the tires, 'cause turn 3 was an absolute slideshow the whole race. Like I kept roasting the right rear, just coming off. Like if you saw any of my slides, man, I was full, like almost full lock to the right sometimes.
Yeah, it looked interesting, and then you have to conquer multiple green flag pit stops. We didn't have a caution that you could kind of settle yourself down at all. How
Man,
difficult was it to run the 100 lap race at Pocono is not an easy thing to do.
Oh no, man, I don't know how the professionals do this in the hot box of 150 degrees. I'm sitting in a nice, cool 70-degree room, and I'm sweating bullets, man. It's crazy. My arms hurt.
See,
Well,
now,
go ahead, Patrick.
excuse me. We had a question during the middle of the race. What is on the side of your car? I'm looking at it now. It almost looks like Chewbacca sitting on the top of a TIE Interceptor.
It's actually Darth Vader.
Really?
Yeah.
That would explain the red lightsaber I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's a cartoonization Darth Vader.
Oh, that's fantastic, man.
Yeah, I love Star Wars and I love the Mighty Ducks, so I put them together as a fancy paint scheme.
Oh, man, it was fantastic. I'm seeing Darth Vader now.
That is absolutely spectacular. I did not. Now that you say that, I am seeing the Mighty Ducks on the hood of that car. That is absolutely spectacular. Oh, man. Well, I'll tell you what, Mike, it was a hell of a show you put on here. We're looking forward to hopefully having you back for the final 3 races of the season, then heading off into next season. Before we let you get out of here, let's make sure you get any sponsor plugs or thank yous that you need to in here.
First off, as always, I want to thank you guys for always putting on a great product. Down the Long Pond straightaway, I was texting my buddy Ken. He was in the chat. He was saying you guys were fantastic as always, even with how spread out we got. I want to thank my team, always Shatter Team Racing. Love those guys. And third place, can't complain about it. Wish didn't have the damage, but hey, it happens sometimes. We'll come back next week and get them at North Wilkesboro.
All right, buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mike. We appreciate you coming to hang out with us here. And I'll tell you what, Patrick, there was a lot going on in this race, both on the racetrack and behind the scenes. We can't ignore the realities of what's going on in the rest of the world here. Very hard not to be distracted tonight. And then
I was going to say, I was a bit distracted towards the later end of this race with the news that's coming out right now, but...
yeah, and it's something that's kind of difficult to keep your eyes off of, but at the same time, these guys put on a hell of a show. 100 laps of caution-free racing is very hard to do at Pocono. There are so many places around here. The bump in 2, how squirrely they were in 3. Yeah, a couple of guys, seems like most of the field had some contact with the wall at some point.
You say that.
We didn't see enough to draw a yellow.
My first time here at Pocono was 2006. It was Denny Hamlin's first win. And me and my father, we came down to the racetrack, just being casual NASCAR fans, looking to see some cars crash. And man, were we disappointed. After 100 laps, my father said, I'm done with this, and left the race. So we went home after 100 laps, not seeing a single caution, and it's pretty much what these boys did here tonight. And now, as an actual racing fan, it's fantastic to see that. And it really takes a lot to take your mind out of that, car smashy cool aspect and go into, this was a fantastic race from a racing standpoint, rather than, an excitement of pieces of race car getting torn up standpoint.
Yeah, we got to see, quite frankly, 12 very good race car drivers doing very good things out on the racetrack tonight. It was a lot of fun, and we are going to get to do it 3 more times this season. Coming up next week, 200 laps around the North Wilkesboro Speedway.
I might not join you in the booth for that one. I might plead with the owners of this league to go and run that one. I love North Wilkesboro.
North Wilkesboro is an absolute blast. I don't know how friendly it's going to be on four-wheel independent suspension race cars, but we will find that out 1 week from tonight. Then
I've run that track with you in a Lotus 79. It's fantastic, and those things got four-wheel independent suspension.
That's true, and significantly more downforce than what these Cup cars have.
I forgot about that part.
In 2 weeks, we head off to Rockingham Speedway for 150 laps. North Wilkesboro and the Rock back-to-back. $30 million well spent by the North Carolina State Legislature. Closing out the season, we stay in the Southeast, heading off to Nashville Super Speedway. First mile and a half since Vegas 1 week ago, and only the third one of the 10-race schedule. That one is going to be very, very interesting to see how the setup issues could potentially be sorted by that point. But a lot of racing to go before we get to Nashville.
Nashville also doesn't race like any of the other super speedways. It's kind of like a regular mile and a half with a touch of twang.
I see what you did there.
Why don't we meet up at Tootsie's and talk about it?
That is a fantastic idea. If we're going to head off to Tootsie's Orchid Lounge and call the race from the bar at Tootsie's,
I'm game.
We may have to make that work somehow. All right, it is time to get the heck out of here. Everybody stay safe. Looking forward to seeing you all 1 week from tonight. Coming up the rest of this week, tomorrow night we got a doubleheader, but it's real world and virtual action. The High Side Hustle with Bert Wojcik and Adam Rubright. Jimmy Phelps is definitely going to be on the show because we recorded that interview last night, hoping to also have Emerson Axsom on the show as well. Big winner in the Super Dirt Car Series, huge winner at the USAC Winter Dirt Games in Emerson Axsom. Should be a fantastic show coming up for those guys. Then we follow it up with the Indy Pro 2000 Championship, Pack Racing, Iowa style. I cannot wait. Tomorrow is going to be a whole lot of fun. Coming up on Monday, the Silver Crowns round out their season at Lucas Oil Raceway Park. Sim Racers Club heading off to North Wilkesboro on Tuesday. And it's almost time for the Fuel Premier Series to debut. They will kick off Monday, March 14th at either 8 or 9 p.m. We'll check the schedule and update you, but heading off to Daytona, and they will be with us through the month of June. Cannot wait to get started with those guys. Couple of doubleheaders on Bristol at the Dirt and at Darlington. They've got a jam-packed schedule coming up. But until then, for Patrick Byrne, camera design by Mr. Connor Baldwin, and everybody here at the National Racing Network, my name is Chris Graham. It's been a pleasure to have you hanging out with us. We will talk to you all soon. Have a great night, everybody.